put the kids to bed because I'll be talking about movies I saw in 2025 that range from G to R. Hello everybody, Blue Boy here on my Letterboxd account, here to talk about the movies I've seen in 2025, because I wanted to have a proper video to start off in 2026 after everything I've been through. So, 2026. What a year. I've been through a lot of good, a lot of bad, and it did not end well for me in 2025 after I've lost my dad. And we're still going through it. And now I wanted to talk some movies that I've seen in theaters and on streaming. I will not be including the films that did not come out in 2025 as my first watches, so the Paddington trilogy, sorry, disqualified. No, Hundreds of Beavers, Nosferatu, Wallace and Gromit, Flow, Complete Unknown, We Live in Time, Bloodshot, any other film, disqualified, as I am primarily talking about the movies that came out this year that I saw in a theater legally and on streaming legally. So let's get to it. Let's start off with The Wolfman, which was an alright horror movie by Lee Winnell, carried by the third act horror aspect and Julia Gardner's performance. And I was conflicted with it because it let me down, but it ended up being fine. Forgettable, background noise. Yeah, just be glad I saw Upgrade later on, and that was a much better film than Wolfman. Then move on to Companion, which I'll admit, it's best to go into this movie blind because holy crap, it was so unpredictable after the first 15 minutes. I don't know, I have to rewatch Companion. So yeah, it was so insane. 10 out of 10 for me. Captain America Brave New World. I saw this with my mom because number one, she loved Harrison Ford, and number two, I'm a Marvel fan. And it was so close to being perfect. I get why this is among the more divisive MCU entries because of the whole reshoot aspect. And yeah, I do have my problems with it. Ruth could have been a different character, to be honest, or just kill her off in the third act, Red Hulk Rampage, and we could have seen more Serpent Society members than just Sidewinder, played by Giancarlo Esposito. Otherwise, it's another solid entry in the MCU, 8 out of 10. Noja 2. Didn't watch the first Noja movie because I wasn't aware of this movie until it broke records at the box office by being the biggest animated movie of all time and the biggest movie of the year so far. So I went into this movie blind, and I'm glad I did because it was one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever been to, because holy crap, everything about this movie was just awesome, in my opinion. But I would like this more if I saw the first Noja movie, because let's be real, I had a hard time finding Noja on streaming and physical media because I hear it's free on YouTube if you're in other countries, but I don't know, yeah, Roadshow Entertainment should definitely get in on releasing Noja 1 and 2 on DVD and Blu-ray in the future. Otherwise, this movie is just pretty awesome. Monkey. the first of the Stephen King adaptations released in 2025 that ended up being so critically acclaimed for many reasons. Mainly because of the kills, the story, and just the performances and cast that stacked up, like Theo James in a dual role, Tatiana Maslany, Elijah Wood, Adam Scott. And just my favorite part about this were the Final Destination ass kills and the third act, which reminds me of a Saw movie. Again, this is a 10 out of 10 for me because I love horror in general, and it's becoming one of my favorite genres of all time. Now let's move on to March with Mickey 17, starring Robert Pattinson. Again, another great dual performance movie, because we've had a lot of dual performances in 2025 with The Monkey before, now with Mickey 17, and later on with Sinners. And in my opinion, it's best for dual performances because you just get the essence of one actor playing two different characters, and it just fools the eye. Because I'm a sucker for dual performances in movies. So anyway, Mickey 17 is a solid 9 out of 10, underrated hidden gem for me. Now we go on to one of the first double features of the year with The Rule of Jenny Penn and Snow White. I loved Rule of Jenny Penn more than I did Snow White because Rule of Jenny Penn was an intense geezer horror movie where Jeffrey Rush acts all James Dokes on John Lithgow's character because of his hand puppet that he grew attached to. Yeah, go see this movie for yourself if you can find it on... Where is it available to stream? If you can find it on Shudder and AMC. And Snow White, skip, because everything about this movie is just ugly. Minus Rachel Zegler, because she's innocent. But Gal Gadot cannot act, the songs suck, and the dwarves are nightmare fuel from a Robert Zemeckis demo reel. 1.5 out of 5. Garbage. Novocaine. Pretty awesome movie. I wish it had the song by Fall Out Boy or Green Day in the credits or in an action sequence or in a love montage. Overall, it's a 9 out of 10 for me. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Best Looney Tunes movie ever. Great 2D animated theatrical movie. I'm glad Ketchup Entertainment saved it. 10 out of 10, no notes. Dogman. Cute. Would have liked it better, but, well, no. I put this on par with Captain America, Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, in terms of just how off the wall insane it is. But this has more heart to it, and I enjoyed it. Same with the Bad Guys short it came before. A Minecraft movie, stupid, I loved it. Death of a Unicorn, stupid, I loved it. Amateur, alright popcorn flick that you can leave on in the background when it comes out on streaming or DVD. Sinners, no notes, perfect horror movie. I want this movie to sweep the awards, and I'm not upset that this film only won 2 Golden Globes, the same amount as K-Pop Demon Hunters, where you won 2 awards and you won 2 awards, so it's a win-win for us. Drop. I had a lot of fun with Drop and Warfare, and unlike the last double feature from March 20th, where I saw 1 good movie and 1 bad movie, I saw 2 good movies with Drop, directed by Christopher Landon of Happy Death Day and Paranormal Activity 4 and Freaky. And he was supposed to direct Scream 7, but he had to drop out, especially with how Paramount handled Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. But yeah, Christopher Landon got the right choice by doing Drop over Scream 7, because it's kind of like a bottle movie where it's set in one location and you're just on the edge of your seat on what is going on. And yeah, it's best if you go in blind. And surprisingly has one of my favorite opening credits of the year, because it felt like a James Bond movie to me. Warfare. My god, the cast was so unrecognizable in this movie, and the direction that Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland do was just immaculate. Always let the war vets who move into Hollywood do the job of directing. Until Dawn. I can get why fans weren't so fond of this one, but I kind of liked it a bit more than Wolfman, to be honest. But I still put it on the same league as Wolfman, where Until Dawn has more entertainment value than Wolfman, to be honest. Now let's end April with Thunderbolts, which this goes to show that audiences are like, oh yeah, Marvel is back. And this movie is as great as is, if only they never killed off Taskmaster. She deserved better after everything she went through in the first Black Widow movie. But still, can't wait to see them again in Avengers Doomsday. Now let's move on to May with Final Destination Bloodlines. I'll be honest, I never watched the original 5 Final Destination movies. I only watched the kill counts of them by Dead Meat. And I had a fun time with Final Destination Bloodlines, because who knew that the directors of the Disney Channel Kim Possible movie would make so far the best film in the series. And give a really well done farewell to Tony Todd with his scene as Mr. Bloodworth, and knowing that cancer would get to him. It was really well done. Really wish I saw the original 5 movies, but I'll get around to it in the future when I buy the DVD box set or borrow someone's HBO Max account or something. Yeah, 9 out of 10. Great movie. Hurry Up Tomorrow. Cinematography and the music were the only good things about the movie. I did not know what happened in the plot. The characters sucked, and the acting did not help either. I think this might have been worse than Snow White, but let's be honest, I've seen worse. I have seen worse. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, another film I saw with my mom when she came over. I'm gonna rip off the Band-Aid. Not a fan of Tom Cruise as a person, but I appreciate him for keeping cinema alive. And yet another banger Mission Impossible movie, though I wish they didn't kill off one of the major characters that we've known for 8 movies now. That's why I didn't give it a 10 out of 10, but yeah, another issue I had was that it's too long. And again, we got Superman, What Lies Beneath. Saw those movies. Ballerina. I was worried that this film was going to be bad due to the whole reshoots thing and the director's track record with the Underworld movies and Total Recall, the remake. But it turned out surprisingly good. I wish there was a sequel. 8 out of 10. Predator, Killer of Killers. Another great Predator movie from Dan Trachtenberg. 10 out of 10. Wish this was released in cinemas, to be honest. Bring her back. A much better horror movie than Talk to Me by Raka Raka. And this is more disturbing, and Sally Hawkins' performance really elevated this film in my eyes. Though I can see why she didn't come back for Paddington 3. I rewatched Rise of the Beast, the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. Not gonna go and repeat myself with the remake of How to Train Your Dragon because I'm just gonna be brief and say, skip, watch the original trilogy. And there's Borat, Batman Begins, Elio, another great Pixar movie from that. I was worried that this was going to be a disaster because of the whole director change and overhaul since the strikes. But it surprisingly turned out good. But certainly close to being another perfect Pixar movie. Though I'm glad they credited the original director, unlike The Good Dinosaur. And then Karate Kid Legends. This movie is what made me realize that there's no such thing as a bad Karate Kid movie. Only weak Karate Kid movies like Next Karate Kid, which I saw back on May 13th. But yeah, I could do a whole video on why I love the Karate Kid movie sequels. Like a sort of, there's no such thing as a bad Karate Kid movie. Megan 2.0, I put it on par with the first movie for how stupid it is, but I loved it. Smurfs. At least a SpongeBob short that played before was good. Jurassic World Rebirth. Again, it's pretty fine. I liked most of it, but I'd put it over Jurassic Park 3 any day. And then I rewatched the Fantastic Four movies in preparation for First Steps. And then I saw Superman. So far, the best DC movie ever made, and right now among my top 4 Letterboxd films. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, James Gunn, you punk rocker. K-pop Demon Hunters. My sister begged me to watch this movie, but I gave in, and on my first viewing, this movie was okay. And I'm gonna pull up what a friend of mine said in his review. French. Again. I agree with what he said in his initial review. And especially in his first review. The smile on my face during the first 15 minutes faded away when I immediately predicted what the third act would be. Still a pretty enjoyable movie. The action was great. The K-pop trio has fun cemetery, and the animation was very good. Cemetery? You mean chemistry? I had to point out a typo, but yeah. Over time, I did warm up to this movie because of how banger the songs were, like Golden or How It's Done, 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 Takedown. And yeah, I wish that Huntrix did more music instead of being like a one-hit wonder sort of thing. Here's hoping the sequel's better. I Know What You Did Last Summer. A legacy sequel that most people hated, but I thought it was fine. Fantastic Four First Steps. Finally, a great Fantastic Four movie. That is how you do a Fantastic Four movie, where it treated the Fantastic Four like actual characters. Like, I have nostalgia for the 2000s Fantastic Four movies, and I will admit, Fant Four Stick was a piece of crap, but First Steps was a step in the right direction, and I'm thankful for what Matt Shakman has done to this property. Life of Chuck. And Together. Another double feature, but this time themed around neon. Life of Chuck, another great Stephen King adaptation from Mike Flanagan. And Together, I will never listen to Spice Girls the same way again. And for August, my birth month, I watched the Naked Gun trilogy for the first time before seeing the new Liam Neeson one. And then I rewatched Mugen Train, which was still awesome because I was preparing myself for Infinity Castle. Weapons, Zach Krager's second film, and my god, was it awesome. I'm glad I rewatched this on my flight back to Australia. And everything about this movie works, from the performances to the different stories it presents that connects the main plot, like how it's anthology style or told in chapters, all leading up to an insane third act, which is truly one for the ages. And again, I rewatched the Karate Kid trilogy once I bought it all on DVD. Stands, pretty solid Eminem documentary. Again, rewatched my first watch of Saw 3D and Jigsaw, rewatch of Karate Kid 2010, first viewing of Airplane, Spiral, fixed. In my opinion, it's pretty overhated, but I prefer this over the Hotel Transylvania movies, to be honest. Like, if you ignore the constant adult jokes and just focus on the story about spending your life without your nether regions, it's alright. Nobody 2. I actually put this on par with the first film because it's still a pretty damn entertaining ride, and Bob Odenkirk, RZA, and Christopher Lloyd have great chemistry as two brothers, and Christopher Walken as the dad. And I think this third act is much better than the firsts, particularly with the RZA acting like a Demon Slayer character when he took out that one guy with a sword, and just Christopher Lloyd going at it with a machine gun. And yeah, Naked Gun, funniest movie of the year. Not gonna repeat what everyone else has said. Rewatched Karate Kid for my birthday. Superman rewatched with my mom. Toxic Avenger. I'm glad this came out. It was pure schlock in a good way. Ended August with Caught Stealing, my second Darren Aronofsky movie after The Whale. This was pretty entertaining. Fight or Flight. It's basically like Bullet Train but on a plane. I hope they make a sequel to explain what the hell is happening. Bad Guys 2. Another great sequel to a DreamWorks movie, like on par with Shrek 2, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and Kung Fu Panda 2. F1. I saw the last movie I ever saw with my dad before he passed away 3 months after Father's Day. We had a fun time. I wish this movie was in color and it wasn't predictable, and I wish it didn't have too much product placement. Otherwise, it's a solid 7 out of 10. The Long Walk. I'd give this 5 stars if they didn't kill off Ben Wang. Then again, another great Stephen King adaptation. Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle. I'm glad I saw this in IMAX, much like Superman. And after Oppenheimer, I'm glad I saw more movies in IMAX, but sadly, there are no IMAX screenings from where I am right now. Yeah, I rewatched Toy Story for its 30th anniversary screening. Big Bold Beautiful Journey. I don't get the hate, though I do understand that people don't like it for its constant use of too many F-bombs, where this film could have been easily PG-13. Like, what were you thinking with the constant F-bombs? This could have been an easy PG-13 if you didn't have too many F-bombs. You're not Scorsese, you're more like what people think Vivsy Pop is. One battle after another. Chase Infinity, get that Oscar. And I'm glad Teyona Taylor won her Golden Globe. My first PTA movie, so damn amazing. Him, I don't get the hate. It's stupid and a bit pretentious and too on the nose with its symbolism, but I still like it. Then again, I rewatched Tron Legacy and Saw X. Now we move on to the last page of 2025. Tron Ares. I wish I liked it if they didn't have Jared Leto, where I would have preferred Adam Driver as Ares, to be honest. Good boy. A live-action Courage the Cowardly Dog episode, but more heartbreaking. The Smashing Machine features a great performance from The Rock, and I'm glad he got nominated. Here's hoping he might get nominated for the Oscar. Looks like he was for a Golden Globe, because it'll be like his Brendan Fraser moment where he wins an Oscar and does whatever he likes other than the blockbuster guilty pleasure schlock he's been doing for the past few years. Even though I am a closeted Red 1 Black Adam enjoyer. Black Phone 2, a much better sequel to one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And I want more Black Phone movies. Like, imagine a Black Phone movie set in a modern time where he calls you through a black smartphone. Chainsaw Man, the movie. Reze Arc. I'm glad this movie exists because this is why anime movies should be adapting anime arcs from the manga into a movie. Like, what's like with Infinity Castle and Mugen Train before with Demon Slayer? Sometimes arcs work better as movies than they do as TV episodes. So yeah, if you've never watched the first season of Chainsaw Man, you'd be a bit lost, but still enjoy it. But I watched Chainsaw Man a year before Reze Arc, as soon as I got my Crunchyroll subscription, and yeah, that was a good combination of Deadpool and Venom minus the fourth wall breaks, but Reze Arc and Infinity Castle are damn good movies. And I saw Paranorman the Thrifting for the re-release in cinemas, and it was a pretty good short. Rewatched Sinners for a Discord watch party, first time watching Saw. Frankenstein, I saw this as it was meant to be seen in the cinema and not on my TV or phone or computer. You just gotta love what Guillermo del Toro has up his sleeve. Shelby Oaks. A bit wonky for Chris Stuckman's directorial debut, but baby steps. Baby steps. Good fortune. As someone who doesn't have a job, I relate to it, and I'd much rather live with my loved ones than out on the street. And if I were a rich guy, I'd say AI sucks. Predator Badlands, another great Predator movie from Dan Trachtenberg, and I'm glad this got made for theaters. Chicken Little Rehatched. I loved it because a mood of mine worked on it. Now You See Me, Now You Don't. I watched the previous Now You See Me movies in preparation for Now You Don't because I went into them blind, and the biggest strength these movies have is the unpredictability they have. Like, you don't know what you're gonna get yourself into because you're gonna have a fun time in the end. Wicked for Good. A great part 2 to Wicked Part 1, because I'm glad I saw these back to back a day apart, because my issue with Wicked is that it ended where it was getting good, and I'm glad Wicked for Good lived up to the expectations of being good. And I teared up in some parts. Because Ariana and Cynthia, my Shaylas, my god. I kind of wish that No Place Like Home or Girl in a Bubble get nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars. Because you cannot diss Stefan Schwartz and Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, the powerhouse trio of this movie, in my opinion. And Running Man. A much more faithful adaptation of the Stephen King book than the 1987 one, but yeah, I like this better. And compared to Edgar Wright's other movies, it's definitely the weakest, but it's still good. Zootopia 2. A much better than the first film, where the first film was solid, has a good message of prejudice and bigotry and equality and staying woke. Zootopia 2 builds up on that by having reptiles introduced and the whole thing of stealing credit from the reptiles and snakes. And the message of this movie is never take credit for work that other people do. Wake up dead, man. Glad I saw this in cinemas, much like Glass Onion back in 2022, which is weird since in 2022 I saw Rian Johnson and Guillermo del Toro Netflix movies in cinemas before they hit streaming, and in 2025 I watched a Guillermo del Toro and a Rian Johnson movie made for Netflix in 2025. And then on to December, the final month of the year. I rewatched Mutant Mayhem, loved it, because Tales of the TMNT was coming to Netflix, and Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I don't get the hate, but I had a fun time, like the first movie. And that was when I rewatched the Narnia trilogy for its 20th anniversary. And in between Caspian and Dawn Treader, I watched Eternity, which I honestly forgot this was going to be an Apple TV movie, because I thought it was just going to be a regular A24 movie made for theaters, but I imagined the surprise on my face when I saw the Apple Original Films logo after. Again, this was a cute rom-com that has a good message about indecisiveness or letting go of your loved ones so you can do whatever floats your boat, like how Larry, played by Miles Teller, decides to be a bartender like Luke, so Luke can have his eternity with Joan, played by Elizabeth Olsen, and Joan finally has her realization that she can have a better eternity with Larry than Luke. And yeah, it's pretty good, pretty solid, pretty cute. And that was when I rewatched the Avatar movies before Fire and Ash. Much like the Now You See Me movies, these movies just get better, in my opinion. Especially with Varang and Quaritch's dynamic. I can see why their freak matches their freak. And it was the last movie I saw in New Zealand before flying to Australia for my dad's funeral. And then we go on to the movies I saw in Australia. Anaconda with Paul Rudd and Jack Black. A great meta reboot. And just basically Jack Black's sort of sequel to Tropic Thunder, where it's a movie about making a movie that goes horribly wrong. And they just had to do what they do to stay alive in the jungle. And of course, with the nods to the original film, they're really well done, with the cameos of Ice Cube and J-Lo. Give this a watch if you've never seen the original movie. I wish I saw the original movie, but it wasn't on Netflix Australia, it was on Netflix New Zealand. TMNT Chrome Alone 2, Lost New Jersey. Another great Seth Rogen project that basically said, F you to AI. Followed up by the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, the last movie I saw in 2025. It was pretty good. I much enjoyed it better than the previous one, Sponge on the Run, and it was certainly more entertaining than the Netflix movies by like Sandy Cheeks and Plankton, even though I've still have yet to see Plankton the movie. I hear it's okay. Yeah, but Search for SquarePants was a really alright movie. I was debating about giving it a 7 or 8, and I just went with an 8 because this was Derek Drymon's big comeback to SpongeBob after being around for the first 3 seasons and the first movie. And I kind of got used to Mark Hamill's Flying Dutchman, even though I'm particularly fond of Brian Doyle Murray's Flying Dutchman from the series. And yeah, it was a pretty solid movie, and these are all the movies I've yapped about for 2025, and here's hoping that 2026 will be a much better year than 2025, because there are a lot of great movies coming out in 2026, like Dune Messiah, Avengers Doomsday, Supergirl, The Odyssey, Forgotten Island, Hexed, Hoppers, GOAT, Spider-Man Brand New Day, and so many others to look forward to. And this has been Blue Boy the Nerd. Enjoy what movies you like. Don't be a pretentious film bro on Twitter. Peace out.